But again, before we get into that, this is a podcast, and so we have a couple of business issues that we have to get into. I want to remind you guys to visit my friends at Birch Gold. You can text the word Chad, that's my name, C-H-A-D, I spell it Chad, to 989898, and they will send you a no-obligation free information packet because a lot of you out there are worried about your retirement. You want to make sure that it is secure. Some of you need help starting a retirement plan. Make sure that your retirement plan is backed by something that has held its value for all of human history, and that is precious metals. Birch Gold will help you diversify or create or transfer your existing IRA over into a retirement account that is backed by gold, and they will help you. Text Chad to 989898. It does you absolutely no harm whatsoever to at least get the information kit. Take care of your financial future with Birch Gold. Text 989898. Text Chad to 989898 and get it taken care of, folks. The guys over at Birch Gold, they're good folks, man. And I talked to them on a Zoom call the other day. They're excited to help you. And they will absolutely help you. So hope everybody had a fantastic week, and we are headed into the inauguration on Monday. I'm not here to talk politics. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your faith. I want to talk about your life. I want to tell you about what I'm dealing with. And I was on, let's just get into it, okay? I don't want to talk about this topic. I never want to talk to you about any of these topics because they're very revealing about where I am in my life. I'll just tell you, I struggle with things right now because I'm wrestling with God. I'm wrestling with life. I'm wrestling with faith. And I think we all get to a point in life where we start to realize just how mortal we are. And I'm sore. My entire body is sore because I spent the entire day yesterday on a horse. Now, normally in my life, that wouldn't be a problem. There was a period of my time where I spent a lot of time on a horse. It was basically a daily routine for a number of years in my life. Yeah, a lot of my friends out there, I'll tell you, I was, we did a lot of stuff on horses. They just had the Fort Worth Stock Show parade yesterday. I used to ride in that every year. Used to ride do a bunch of stuff with a lot of in the Western world in the cowboy culture. These days, not so much. These days, I'm spending more time kind of sitting on my butt, not in the saddle, but in a seat made out of cow. So I'm not much of a cowboy anymore. And so I had to do a television shoot yesterday, a promo, and I spent a lot of time in a saddle. Did some things that I used to do that I haven't done in a while. Let me just tell you, it will remind you that you are not a spring chicken anymore. If you've ever spent any time on a horse, you will know what I'm talking about. There are muscles that you simply never use, and you discover them the next morning when you woke up. So I am sitting on my gluteus maximus right now, and I am reminded that I even have a gluteus maximus because it is sore, and so are my inner thighs. My hip is sore because I had to do some falling yesterday. I'm too old to be falling off of anything, and I had to, though, to make a scene work. And, Tom Cruise would do it, but Tom Cruise makes a lot more money than me. I just have a lot more ignorance. So anyway, I'm sore. But yesterday, anytime I'm on a horse, and I was on a big horse yesterday, a big barrel horse. This horse had never done any television before. You have TV horses, and then you just have horses. A good horse. This was a gelding horse. You know what a gelding is? That's a male horse that's had its testicles taken off, so it's not so aggressive. But he was a tall horse. He was about 16 and a half hands, which is a very tall horse. And he was a barrel horse, so he knew 2 speeds, here and gone. He was a fast horse. But I like this horse. They gave me an option on 2 different horses. They said, well, this horse has never done television. We'll see how he does. He did great. I'd love to take some credit for that, but the horse just hit his marks, did all the stuff he was supposed to do, listened to me, and we shot for a couple of hours on the back of that horse, and he did a fantastic job. If you've been on a horse, especially, any horse, but particularly a horse of any size, you're reminded that just how impressive it is for you to be able to put a bit in a horse's mouth and control the actions of that horse, the direction of that horse, the movement of that horse, with just the shift of your legs, the pressure of your legs, or the movement of your hips, and that little bit in with that little bit in their mouth, that little metal bit, and the movement of your hand with the reins. It's amazing what you can do with this really powerful animal. You can't do it with all of them, but the ones who have been trained and who have kind of controlled that power and have submitted themselves to the training and submitted themselves to the rider that's on the back of them. It's amazing when you realize just how impressively powerful these animals are. But it's power that's under control, and I want to talk to you about that. There's a biblical word for that, and I was reading about it this morning, and it's not a word we use very much. It's not a word it's not really in the American vocabulary because we don't understand it. And it doesn't really come up very often because we don't live in a world where there are a lot of, well, there are examples, but they're not day-to-day examples of what this word entails. And the word is meekness, not weakness, meekness. So in Matthew 5:5, when Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," he wasn't talking about weak people. I don't know if you have thought a lot about world domination and actually inheriting the earth, but weak people don't do that. Weak men don't accomplish taking over the earth. It's one of the fruit of the Spirit, meekness, so we should know what it is. So if you're a child of God, if you've been redeemed by Christ, then the Holy Spirit who lives inside of you should be manifesting certain characteristic traits. And these are very convicting because it's a very easy litmus test to let you remind yourself or to tell you if you are operating by the Spirit of God's guidance. And those are the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22-23. Fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. Gentleness, that's the same word as meekness, and self-control. I'm going to repeat those because some of you might need to do a little character lesson for yourself. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's the Greek word prautes for gentleness. It's the same word that Jesus used and when he says the meek shall inherit the earth. Matthew 11:29, Jesus said, and we referred to this last week, he said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart." The word gentle there is meekness. Jesus was saying, my teachings they entail meekness. So if I want to learn what it is to be to follow Jesus, I've got to have an understanding of meekness. If I want to have the fruit of the Spirit, and I need to be able to test whether or not the Spirit of God's living inside of me, I need to have meekness. If I want to inherit the earth, if I want to expand my borders, I need to have meekness because blessed are the meek. I'm blessed when I'm meek. So I need to kind of know what that is. What is he saying? James chapter 5, verse 19, he says that, dear brothers and sisters, he says, take note of this, that everybody should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, slow to anger. And he says, because human anger does not produce the righteousness of God. He says that, therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. That word humbly, that's prautes again. He's saying with meekness, accept the word of God, which is able to save you. So this is an important word, and it, in a nutshell, means to have power under control. Just like that horse is controlled by the rider, by the owner, by the trainer, our lives should be power under control. The idea of gentleness or meekness from the idea of prautes, that the idea there is there's an inner thing that happens that manifests itself in an outward action. That tends to be a lot of the fruit of the Spirit. And so I've got to be able to look at my life and say, okay, is something working inside of me that's controlling my outward actions? Because I can go ahead and tell you, yes, it is. But you can tell your outward expressions can tell you, your outward actions can tell you what's working inside of you. So if you are, as James says, if you're pursuing, if you're pursuing garbage, if you're pursuing moral filth, if you're pursuing evil, the actions of your life are going to be evil. The Apostle Paul, writing to the church in Rome, he says that, the feet run swiftly to do evil. We do that because our heart is evil. You go back and you look in Romans 1, and he talks about the heart being evil. All of these things, we got to have a heart transplant. I got to be regened, okay? Regeneration. That's what happens when I accept Christ. I am born again. Regeneration means I'm regened. I now have the DNA of God operating inside of me with an outward expression. You will know them by their fruit, is what Jesus told his disciples. So you want to know who's a false prophet, who's a false apostle, who's a false teacher. Look at their fruit. You can't be living like hell and preaching heaven. You also can't be, out there running crazy. And I've run crazy plenty of my life. And this is the thing that's so convicting of me. There's that temptation to go out there and run crazy. Now, it gets easier to not run so crazy as you get older, because you wind up with a sore butt and, you remind yourself that you can't go like you used to go anymore. So certain temptations just get easier to go away as you get older. But there's still the heart issue, because even if you have this lack of desire to go out and get crazy, get wild, pursue evil, that doesn't necessarily mean that your heart's changed. You got to have that heart transplant. So I'm encouraging everybody to get inside themselves for a little while, look inwardly, and put your screens down, put your phones down, tune out the conversation around you and all the noise that's trying to bombard you, and ask yourself, okay, are the outward actions of my life, are they representing something that inwardly is pleasing to God? So I know none of us are perfect. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not even asking myself to be perfect. I would love to be perfect, because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm trying to honor the God that saved me. I'm trying to honor the Lord who died for me. And that's the motivation. My motivation isn't to please you. My motivation isn't to measure up to the church lady standards. I don't really care what they think about me. The person who thinks they're so hyper spiritual and all this kind of stuff, you keep putting those people up on the pedestal and God will keep knocking them off. I'm not impressed by anybody. I've been around, quote, faith leaders and mega ministry leaders. I've been around these people who think that they kind of walk with an air of superiority, that they're supposed to get some kind of special reverence. I think that the Bible is very clear that people who minister the word and things like that should get a double honor. That's exactly what the scripture says. But that doesn't mean that person who's out there is out there looking for it. They're not out there expecting it, okay? There's a difference when you look at somebody and they expect you to treat them a certain way versus the way you choose to do it based on, you judging them by their own fruit, okay? Just because somebody puts a title in front of their name doesn't mean anything. And so what we've done is we've gotten away from meekness. We've gotten away from power under control. And we've started, especially in America, especially in the American church, we've started to place emphasis and reverence on things that aren't necessarily powerful at all. And so, in fact, they're impotent. Just because you put a title in front of your name, or just because you put a steeple on top of the building, doesn't mean there's power there. Let's say that again. Just because you put a title on front of your name, you're prophet, pastor, apostle, whatever, bishop, brother, elder. I don't care. You put a reverend. Only God is reverend. I'll just tell you right now. Only God is to be revered. Man isn't supposed to be revered. So just because you put a title in the front of your name or a steeple on top of a building doesn't mean there's power there. In fact, there's more impotence there than anything else. And all you got to do is look at the fruit across the landscape of American culture and society, and that is the direct result of a weak, faulty, frail American church. People who claim to believe in the Bible, people who claim to believe in this book right here and say that they apply it and say that they live it. And I'm telling you, there's a weakness. There's a reason why I walked away from the American church years ago. And I have very, very carefully stepped back into it in recent years, is because I got tired of just like you, I got tired of the hypocrisy. But now mine was a little bit more. I was close to a lot of church leaders, and I was able to look behind the curtain and see that Oz was not the Oz that everybody thought he was. Okay. So there were a lot of strings being pulled that made things look wild and crazy and fanciful and excellent and powerful, but it was man's strength. It was man's power. Now that's not me throwing everybody under the bus. I don't believe that at all. I believe there's some great men and women of God out there. I believe there's some great ministries. There's some great churches out there, but you got to be careful, because I want to find people. I want to follow people. I want to listen to people who are operating in meekness. I played golf with someone recently, and you would never know how wealthy this person was. I like people like that. I don't like people who come in and want to show me pictures of their blackjack winnings or the pictures of their Maserati. And I know a lot of people like that, people who come in the door and want to talk about how humble they are, meanwhile telling you about all the, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're trafficking in on a weekly basis just so you'll be impressed with them. Listen, I don't care what you come from. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've accomplished in life. At the end of the day, you are going to give an account before God, and this thing that you've, spruced up with a mobile identity like a sports car or something like that. This temporary mobile home, this suitcase you're carrying your gook around in, all your goop is going to be worm food, folks. So I'm not impressed with those things. Pull the curtain back of your own heart, though, because again, those people aren't going to judge me. God's going to judge me. I don't care what Pastor so-and-so says about me, or sister, better than you says about me. I care about what God says about me. So I got to pull back the curtain of my own hearts, because it's easy for me to pull the curtain back and say, see, Oz isn't the great wizard. When I look at American institutions or the church or something like that, what's more revealing is when I pull the curtain back of my own heart and I reveal that, I'm not the person that I thought I was either. There's a lot of little gremlins that are hiding around in there. A lot of things that are driving me that I don't want in there. So got to do a heart transplant. Pull the curtain back. And I want to just give you some practical application about meekness. First of all, James says in the verse I read, he says, get rid of moral filth and evil. And it's so prevalent. I was watching these confirmation hearings this week, and I was looking at these senators who are trying to grill these candidates for these various positions that are being appointed. And it was, certain ones who were consistently talking about their moral behavior, their sexual behavior, or all these things. And I'm like, why are these people so consumed with this stuff when it comes, as though anyone in Washington, D.C., any of these permanent politicians have walked blameless or morally righteous before God. It's one of the most corrupt places on the planet. The halls of government in any country, some of the most corrupt places. So for these people to get up there and look down their condescending nose and try to pretend like they're morally superior to anybody is laughable at best. And so you gotta look at, as James says, he said, this evil is prevalent in our world, and you've got to, with meekness, accept the word planted in you. Now that's important, because God's going to tell me some things. I'm going to read some things in this book, and people are going to say some things to me, and I'm going to be like, man, I feel like God's using you to tell me something. You're going to listen to the words I'm saying right now, and it's going to be a hard word. It's going to be something you don't want to do. Remember when Jesus told the disciples, he said, you're going to betray me, and you're going to do all these different things. And Peter said, not so, Lord. And Jesus said, get behind me, Satan, for you have no part in me. He literally called his best friend Satan. That's bold. I don't know how many friends you got, but the ones I got ain't really interested in me rebuking them and calling them Satan and saying you got no part with me. But Peter can't say not so, Lord. You can't say not so, Lord. I can't say no and Lord in the same sentence, because if I say no, he ain't Lord. And if he's Lord, I can't say no. You don't say no to the Lord. You don't say no to the King. You don't say no to the creator of the universe. Go back and read the book of Job when Job starts questioning God on the basis of all the suffering that he had, even though he thought he was a righteous man. And God said, oh, really? Let me give you a history lesson about creation. Because, Job, I'd like to know where you were with your moral sense of superiority. And just get you to tell me where you were when I laid the foundations of the earth and hung the firmament in the sky, when I separated the seas with the land, when I put the animals on the earth and I put the whale and the leviathan in the deep, in the depths of the ocean. I would like to know where you were. I would like to know where you were, Job. And so we get this pompous, arrogant, self-righteous, independent American spirit where we blaze our own trail, man. And by God, I'm a cowboy. I'm an American. I'm going to be independent. I'm going to do my own thing. And at the end of the day, God's saying, all right, Buck, you want to do it your way? Well, you have no part with me. You have no part with me. So you can't just sit there when God's telling you, hey, I need you to be humble. I need you to be meek. I need you to be gentle. I need you to be kind. I need you to forgive. I need you to let go of bitterness. I need you to love. I need you to do all of these things. And you say, you know what? I'll forgive everybody but Sister So-and-so down there because I ain't forgiven her. Now, that doesn't mean you let them back in your life to come back and repeat the offense, but you got to pull back the curtain of your heart and deal with what's going on. So you can't say, I'm not doing that, Lord. God says, hey, why don't you quit doing all these wild things you're doing out there, chasing women and acting like a fool and doing all this debaucherous stuff. And you're like, yeah, but I'll get it right later on. Can't say not so, Lord. Can't say no, Lord. So if I want to accept the word of the Lord, I got to do it gently, humbly, with meekness. It's power under control. That means I could go out and do my own thing. That horse yesterday underneath my butt at any time could have taken off and done its own thing, bucked me off of there, kicked me in the head, and moved on with life. But he basically was saying, no, I'm going to do what you're telling me to do. I'm going to put my power under control. I've been trained to put my power under control. And I'm going to do what the master's telling me. So James says, you got to accept the word planted in you with meekness, with gentleness. Because if inwardly you'll accept it that way, outwardly it will have his expression. And I'm going to lay a phrase on you that my late friend Jack Taylor used to say. He'd say, inherent in a word from God is the power to perform it. You've heard the God's word's not going to return void. That's in essence an application of that. If God says something to you, if he puts a word in your heart, something about your future, something about your present, something about your past, if he forgives you of your past, he can help you forgive yourself of your past. If he tells you got a great future in front of you, or maybe there's a trial in front of you, he's telling you inherent in that word from God is the power to perform it. See, that's what grace is. You talk about receiving grace. Grace is the power of God to do what he's called you to do. I'm laying nuggets on you here because this is what God's saying to me. I want to operate in grace because grace is power. I want to operate in meekness because meekness is power. Now, it may be power beyond the surface. It may be power beyond the surface. You can look at me and say, you're a weak person. That's fine. Like I said, I played golf with somebody the other day, and I never knew this guy was worth $100 million. Would have never known it if somebody else hadn't told me, because he didn't carry himself that way. It was power, it was wealth, it was purpose, it was prosperity, it was all of these things, but it's below the surface. I don't have to show people I'm powerful. I don't have to show people. One of the reasons why I've kept the cowboy hat on my head for so many years is, one, I love Western culture. It's part of who I am, but I want people to underestimate me. I had dinner with someone the other night, and I was telling them a little bit of my story, only because they asked. And they were like, wait a minute, you pastored churches? Wait a minute, you went to Nigeria? Wait a minute, you spent time in all of these other countries? Wait a minute, you got 4 kids that have done all these great things? Wait a minute, you have a music out on the radio? Wait a minute, you've written a book? Wait a minute, you've accomplished all these things in sports? Wait a minute. And the wait a minutes went on all night long. Wait a minute. You're telling me that you're in the top 1% of podcasters globally? I didn't tell them that, but it's true. Wait a minute. You got all this, wait a minute. You're selling out shows that you do comedy. Wait a minute. All the wait a minutes. Let people find out about you. You don't have to go around tooting your own horn. I love the phrase, he who tooteth not his own horn remains in a perpetual state of untootedness. But you don't have to walk around tooting your own horn. Let the power be beyond the surface, okay? That's meekness. And you'll inherit the earth. People will begin to see, hey, this is a guy to be reckoned with. Don't underestimate that guy. That guy's actually smarter than you think. That guy actually knows some things. That guy's actually been through some things in life. I love when I run into people that you simply don't know about everything about their life. You meet them and it's like, wow, that dude's as common as shoe leather. But wow, all the things he's accomplished, the lives he's changed, the people that have been impacted by his just the fact that he breathes every day. You would never know it. Those are the people I love. Those are the people I love. I don't need the flamboyance. I don't need the person who's standing up there on the hill telling me how great they are. I don't want to be that person. You ask me, I'll tell you, but I'm not great. I'll tell you things I've done in life. Other people might say they're great. I mean, when I look at my life, I think I've stepped on a lot of landmines. I mean, I've walked right out there in the minefield and looked for the trigger button and stomped right on that sucker. I've done it over and over again. My life is fraught with failure. My life, I have failed way more times than I've succeeded. I'm in a situation, I'm in a situation of life right now where there's so much uncertainty. But at the end of the day, God's not uncertain. And I've received the word that he's given to me, implanted in me humbly, with meekness and with gentleness. Let me let you go, but I'm going to give you guys, let me give you guys a couple of just practical applications here of meekness, okay? And I'm going to pull my phone up because I made some notes. Meekness, if you're going to submit to God, if you're going to do these things, you can ask God for help. That's meek. Blazing your own trail ain't going to work. Recognize that if you want to accomplish God's will in your life, you can't do that on your own. It's impossible. Can't do it. Another thing, you look around the world and you're like, man, I really want to serve other people. You can't serve without meekness because sometimes you have to take the robe off and get down on the floor and wash the people's feet who are seemingly beneath you. That's what Jesus did with his disciples. Now, he didn't see them as beneath. He saw them as brothers. He saw them as friends, but he washed their feet. You can't do that. You can't humble yourself like that without meekness. If you've been wronged in a situation, if you've been accused falsely, lied about, or someone else is in the wrong, you can't correct those things properly. Now, you can go in there like a bulldozer and blast them, but all that's going to do is deepen the wound. That's not addressing the real problem. So if you're going to truly bring healing to yourself or to others, that's going to require meekness. If you want to forgive other people in your life, that's a hard thing to do because it's so much more fun to judge and gossip. If you want to do those things, that is meekness. It requires that. So, because again, it's easier to blast people. If you want to truly have joy and find God's grace in every situation, it's going to require meekness. If you want to know the difference between, like if you want to know your place in this world, meekness. And let me tell you why, because you have to understand the difference between you and God. You got to understand that your pride is going to get you nowhere. Your accomplishments, they're not going to echo in the halls of eternity. When you stand before God, God's not going to care. He doesn't care how many people you employed. God doesn't care how big your bank account was or what you drove. He doesn't care about those things. But if you want to oppose sin and correct others, or even correct false doctrine, false teaching that's out there, it's going to take meekness. So you want to avoid God's anger. You want to increase joy. You want to inherit the earth. I like that. Yeah, you got to have meekness. Jesus described himself as being meek. So if I want to be like Christ, I got to have meekness. There's a great story. About Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great took over the entire known world by the time he was in his late 20s. And there's a great story about his father, Philip of Macedon. He was the king of Greece. And he had a horse named Bucephalus, which I love that name, Bucephalus with a B. Sounds like a venereal disease. But he had a horse named Bucephalus that nobody could ride, nobody could train, nobody could control. And one day at the age of 15, Alexander ran and jumped up on the back of that horse and rode the horse until he was exhausted. And the horse was bucking, going wild, going crazy, but Alexander stayed on and ultimately was able to tame the horse and bring it under control where it would submit to the guidance of a rider and a master. Brought the horse back to his father, Philip, and he said, "Here's your horse." And Philip looked at his son, Alexander, and he said, "I want you to go find a kingdom that is big enough for you because Greece will never be big enough." That's a powerful statement. I want you to go out and find a kingdom that you can rule because Greece will never be big enough for you. And then, of course, in the space of a decade, Alexander had conquered the entire known world. That is an element of power under control. When a 15-year-old boy can control an uncontrollable horse, you see in that this power that no one thinks you have, this ability that no one thinks you have. So I want you to spend some time today and ask yourself, how big of a kingdom do you want to rule over? Because you can inherit the earth. How big do you want your influence to be? Because you can inherit the earth. The earth, the goal is the earth, folks. When Jesus said, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations," baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and lo, I'm with you always, even unto the end of the age. The goal was all nations. It was the whole world. We talk about globalism and one world order and all this kind of stuff. No, the original one world order was was the mission that was given to people from the Great Commission that was given to the disciples by Christ himself. Okay. So the vision has got to be God big, and God big is globally big. So if you're looking at anything less than the earth, then that is a small vision. The meek shall inherit the earth. That's power under control. Pull back the curtains of your own soul. See what's pulling the strings back there. See who the puppet master is, and then go and take over the world. I love you guys, and God bless you. I want to make sure that you guys are prepared for anything that comes your way, not just with meekness, but hey, on a practical level, I want you to visit our friends at the wellness company, twc.health/Chad, twc.health/Chad. Go over there and get your wellness boxes, get your contagion box, get your radiation box, get your emergency medical kit, your field medical kit. You can get your children's kit, all of these. These are prescriptions that if the supply lines run out, your prescriptions come from China. If the supply lines run out, then you can get your prescriptions from your kitchen cabinet. So don't let the contagions come your way. Don't let the fear of pandemics and quaddemics and all the stuff come your way, or just the sniffles or anything else, or the stomach bug. Make sure that you have got these 5 prescriptions that are common, that everybody should have on hand. You can get it from the wellness company, twc.health/Chad. Use promo code Prather over there. That's my last name, Prather. Use that and get a discount. But go check them out over at the wellness company. Get your ivermectin, all the kind of stuff that you need. The stuff that's kind of hard to get your hands on, they've got it. twc.health/Chad. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. It's a path to purpose. And we will be back on Monday with Dear America, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. And then, of course, the Chad Prather Show, 2 o'clock. We'll do some special inauguration episodes. And we'll be back rocking and rolling all week long. Make sure you like, share this episode with your friends and family. And please give us a 5-star rating and a review wherever podcasts are offered. That's the spot where you just listen to it with your ear holes. And share it. We love you. God bless you. And we will talk to you next time